Here we go with the bottom 10 right here at the Voice of College Football. If you enjoy the content, even if you don't agree with me, please hit the like button and subscribe. That way you hit the bell for the notifications to know when we go live. You can give me a call. We can talk college football, just you and I. All right, let's get to the bottom 10. Let's understand, this is not a ranking. This is not a ranking. This is a fun list of just those particular players, coaches, teams, units on a team that are failing, underachieving, throughout an embarrassing performance, whatever it may be. Just a fun list, folks. So let's not jump all in on, well, you got the order wrong or whatever. And yes, there are other examples of exactly this. And it's partially a bottom 10 for the weekend. So there could be the best team in the world, and they could have lost 49-0 over the weekend. I'll throw them in the bottom 10. Just a discussion point, or this could be just the continuation of failings and not meeting expectations game after game after game after game. All right, let's get to the bottom 10. North Carolina, you have made the bottom 10 for a second consecutive week. You started 6-0. You were a 23.5-point favorite 2 weeks ago at home against Virginia, who had not defeated a Power 5 team in 9 games, and you lost the game to Virginia. The first time a top 10 team has lost at home against a team at least 1-5 or worse since 1961. So you would think motivated, laser-focused, ready to not let that happen again. Yes, you barge out of the gates against Georgia Tech 14-0, going to stomp on the poor Yellow Jackets. 3 hours later, it's on the scoreboard and going out to every college football outlet across the country, showing the final score of Georgia Tech 46, North Carolina 42. This is a Georgia Tech offense that averaged 434 yards per game, and they rang up 635 on this pitiful North Carolina defense, 348 yards rushing in this one. And consider this, if that was not enough motivation for North Carolina coming into the game, the Virginia game the week before, Georgia Tech beat them the year before, 2022, en route to a ACC championship game. The Tar Heels went up 17-0 on Georgia Tech and tripped up and lost that game, giving up 21 consecutive points. In the bottom 10, proudly, Carolina. Remember last November when Vandy won 2 consecutive SEC games? They defeated Kentucky and Florida, 2 not great, but decent SEC teams. We thought maybe this was the outset, the birth, the beginning of respectable Vanderbilt football. Well, Vandy is back to being Vandy. They're coming off a 33-7 loss to Ole Miss. They're now 0-5 for the SEC. In the midst of that 26-point loss, Ken Seals and Walter Taylor, their 2 quarterbacks, completed 8 of 20 passes for under 100 yards. You would think, down by 3 and 4 scores for most of the game, that you'd be able to pick up some garbage passing yards. But no, not Vandy. Vandy falls to 0-5 in the SEC. They have Auburn, Tennessee, and South Carolina in front of them to try to pick up a win, or else they match their historic record, not from 50 years ago, but from 3 years ago in 2020 when Vandy went 0-10 against the SEC when there was the expanded SEC schedule during the COVID season. All right. Vandy gave us a glimpse of hope last November, but now 0-5 in the SEC, looking at 0-8. Clark Lee, who once said famously during SEC Media Days, I want to build the greatest program in college football, is 2-19. Vandy is again Vandy. Did anyone see this coming? Notre Dame 58, Pitt 7. Well, we saw maybe this coming this past weekend because Pitt's just been that bad. But did we see this coming like 2023? Pitt's been a good football team. Won the ACC 2 seasons ago. 9-4 last year. Bowl victory against UCLA. 20-7 the past 2 years. Pat Narduzzi had the best record in the Coastal Division during his tenure. Had the 3rd or 4th best record in the ACC. Better than Florida State. Better than North Carolina. Better than Miami. Pitt has been a good football program. They play the defense. This year, it is all fallen apart. 0-4 in the ACC. And only 1 Power 5 win. That was over Louisville. That just seems kind of strange, obviously, because Louisville's having this great season at 7-1, and Pitt got them by 17 points. But other than that, They have gotten beaten up every week, and this was the pinnacle. 58-7, 1 of 11 on third down conversions. The total yardage was 535 to 255. Notre Dame. Pitt goes down once again in this one. They have been atrocious. They gave up the most points that they've given up since 2017 against Oklahoma State, 59. And this 58-7 loss by 51 points. Worst loss for Pitt football since 1996 against Ohio State, 72-0. And to cap it off, Pat Narduzzi went to social media and somewhat blamed his players for it. And the players didn't respond in the most favorable way. Pat Narduzzi, it's not been a good year. Let's get it over as soon as possible and see if you can resurrect this thing. In the bottom 10, Pitt, Sam Houston, first year in the FBS. Let's be kind. I'm going to be kind, even though they belong in the bottom 10 based on, just wins and losses and metrics. But again, the Bearcats doing a nice job. They're fighting. They're competing for a second consecutive week. Probably should have won a game. Lost in overtime 2 weeks ago. This time, 27-20 lead in the fourth quarter against UTEP, but they fall 37-34. 0-8 for the Bearcats. There is hope, I believe, this Saturday against Kennesaw State. Iowa did not play this week, so we'll give the Hawkeyes offense and Brian Ferentz a week off in the bottom 10. We will reserve that spot for a bad unit on the other side of the ball that has made a pretty regular appearance in the bottom 10, and that's the USC defense. They did not lose the game. Technically, they did not lose the game because Cal did not take it away from them. They decided to take a 2-point conversion. USC, they played some pass defense for one play at the goal line and preserved a 50-49 win against Cal. So for the USC defense, they gave up 527 yards of total offense to Cal, of course, the 49 points, and the 5.6 yards per carry. This now is a Trojan defense that ranks number 114 in the nation. Next up, they play the number 1 passing offense in the nation in Washington. All right, Alex Grinch, better come up with some decisions and some solutions very quickly. USC's defense in the bottom 10. Whether you go to games all the time or you've got your heart set on that one huge matchup, go to Ticketsmarter.com to save big. TicketSmarter technology gives you the best competitive prices on the secondary market. Your purchase price is safe and guaranteed. Use promo code BIG, B-I-G, to get $10 off of any purchase of at least $100, or the promo code BIG20, BIG20, to get $20 off of any purchase of at least $300. Use the promo code as many times as you'd like. There is no limit. Get in the game with Ticketsmarter.com or the TicketSmarter mobile app. Think smarter, ticket smarter. Last season, we lauded Jim Mora for the resurrection of the Yukon program that at one point did not play football in 2020 and had been awful, of course, in 21. Jim Mora steps in and immediately they're respectable. They go to a bowl game. They rise from the ashes to reach postseason play in a 6-6 regular season. Well, Yukon is back to being Yukon. They just lost to a bad Army team, 21-14. The mighty Huskies fall to 1-7 and to a spot in our bottom 10. Yukon. Nobody expected Dana Holgorsen and Houston to be a factor in the new Big 12. And they have largely not disappointed. But in recent weeks, give it up for the Cougars. The Hail Mary a couple weekends ago against West Virginia. They pulled that game out. And their first Big 12 win. Also, what about the effort against Texas? They go down to the wire against the mighty Longhorns, 31-24, and have the ball inside the 10-yard line to try to win the game. And a close call on a measurement that would have given them an opportunity to pull off the upset. Houston had some momentum coming into this game against K-State, and they got completely hammered. 44-0. 3 for 18 on third and fourth down conversions, just didn't show up. It is difficult. It is tough to get shut out in a college football game, but the Cougars did it against the mighty Kansas State Wildcats. And this being Houston's worst loss since going back to the 2018 Armed Forces Bowl. Remember that one? Army 70 and Houston 14. In the bottom 10, at least for 1 week, the Cougars. 4-4 would not get most teams placed in the bottom 10, but Clemson is not most programs. Or maybe they are now. 2 wins and 4 losses in the ACC. The most recent, a 24-17 loss to NC State, a Wolfpack team that scored all of 3 points the week before against Duke. Clemson, just a marginal, mediocre football team, just struggling like a lot of other teams across America to make it to a bowl game. Clemson is not Clemson. They had a run of 80 wins and 9 losses in the ACC from 2012 through 2022. 80 and 9. They are right now 2-4 and looking at something close to Dabo Swinney's first season, 2010, 6-7, 4-4 in the ACC, if they can win the final 2. Welcome to the bottom 10. Dabo, Clemson. I feel bad for Michigan State. Their coach acted the fool. He's gone. They are just trying to struggle through a season and do the best they can. And considering the circumstances, they've shown up and played competitive football against the likes of Iowa and Rutgers. They could have won either one of those games. They had leads in the fourth quarter. They've fought for the most part, but it might become a bit too much for them and certainly has been 0-5 in Big Ten play. First time since 2016 when they went 0-6 to start out. Had that one awful season in the middle of all those really good seasons, inexplicably, where they were losing by 1 score week after week after week. But this team is now falling apart. They lose 49-0 to Michigan and were competitive in the game against Minnesota on the road again. So let's give it up for Harlan Barnett and his crew. They go out there and give an effort each week, but they're just not very good. They score 12 points against Minnesota. They lose by 15. They have scored 1 touchdown in the last 9 quarters as they try to find a quarterback. And they also, during this 6-game losing streak, are scoring 11 points per game. 6 losses in a row for Sparty. They're in the bottom 10. We have just one more spot in the bottom 10, and we're going to go to the Big 12, and we're going to pick on the 4 newbies because they continue to struggle acclimating themselves from the American Conference and from BYU's schedule, and they've done the best out of the 4. They've been the most competitive, but these 4 are struggling. 3-17 conference record. This past weekend, they lost 44-0, 45-13, 35-6, and 41-28. Not too bad. UCF has been a pretty good football team for the past few weeks and obviously took Oklahoma to the wire. But altogether, they lose this past weekend 0-4 and outscored 165-47. The Big 12 has not been kind to its new entries, have not laid out the welcome mat. They have stomped them all over the mat. Big 12, newbies, you're in the bottom 10. All right, we had a great time putting this together. Enjoy looking over college football and what's out there each and every week. Not just the high points, not just the college football playoff contenders, but some of those oddities, rarities, and those that are failing miserably week to week or just maybe had a one-off, and we got to take note of that. Leave your comments and questions down below. Keep it locked in here right at the Voice of College Football.